Welcome back everyone. So today I'm going to showing you how to create the browser nodes application. So basically this is really simple. I'm using Next.js and also Shadcn for the UI. As you can see, I can click a new node, for example, and the title right here. This is going to be edit format. As you can see, I can cancel and save that right here. You cannot see that. I'm going to move my face, and as you can see, I can save and cancel, right? So for example, I'm going to change the title to maybe this one right here. I'm going to copy and paste that like so. And also for the content, paste that like so. Okay, so I can save, and as you can see now, we get the sidebar right here and also the content right here. So let's create another node. I'm going to copy the value and paste that right here. And also I just want to copy the content, paste that right here. Okay, as you can see, I can just move whatever the node I like. And then also if I have a lot of node, for example, okay, I'm going to create a lot of node, and as you can see, I can scroll down like so. Okay, this is using a scroll area component from the Shadcn UI. And also if I, for example, just try to edit, I can click edit, and then I can just copy the content right here, a lot of content. So I can showing you the scrollable. Okay, as you can see, I can scroll, I can save, and it's also scrollable right here. Cool. And also I can just delete that right here. It also works. And then as you can see, if we get a value, if I refresh, the value is still there because we store the data on the local storage of the browser, basically, because this is a browser nodes application. So yeah, that's what application we are going to learn to build, right? Hopefully this is helpful, and let's just get started. All right, so let's start from the create brand new Next.js application. So let's click get started right here. And then let's take a look how we can install these Next.js. So I'm going to use this command right here, npx create next app at lattice. All right, just go to whatever the folder you like, cd document. I'm going to go to my YouTube content folders. And from here, I'm going to say npx create next app at lattice, and for the application name I'm gonna give a name, let's say browser is going to be lowercase, browser nodes, just like this, and hit enter. Of course I'm gonna say yes, TypeScript yes, ESLint of course, Tailwind of course, source directory no, app router yes, turbopack yes, import alias no. So let's cd into the browser nodes folder. And from here, I'm going to open that inside Visual Studio Code. All right, great. So now let's install Shadcn. Let's go to shadcn.com right here, go to docs, and then installation. I use Nextjs. To install that, it's pretty simple. Just use this command right here, npx shadcn at lattice init. Just paste to your terminal and then hit enter. I'm going to use neutral and then use -- force. All right, great, it's done. So now let's try to install, for example, button component. I'm going to copy and paste this Shadcn at lattice add button component. So now as you can see, I'm going to use this -- force. As you can see on the root of the application, there's new component folder, and inside that we have a UI, and then we have a button component right here. Great. So now let's try to run npm run dev. All right, so this is what we have. Great. Let's go back, and I'm going to try to use this button component just to make sure this is works, right? Let's go to page, and I just want to remove everything here. And then I just want to render a div, and inside that I'm going to render a button component from the Shadcn UI. And then inside in here, let's say click me or something like that. Save, let's take a look. Here we go. All right, the button is rendered. Great. So the first thing what I'm going to change is, let's take a look at the title right here. Right, let's go to metadata on the layout, and I just want to change this title here to browser nodes and the description to whatever you want. Basically, I just leave it like this, close, and then let's take a look. Here we go. Nice. So now let's create the layout that I'm going to create the node. I'm going to make sure that this div is going to be one height screen, right? So I'm going to put this class name right here, display flags, flags column, and min height screen. It means this is going to be have minimal height to 100 view height. If I do background red, as you can see now all these going to be red, right? It's like all the screen. So basically in this main, I'm going to create 3 columns basically. So let's do class name. And then I'm going to add this container class, MX Auto, to make it this container into center. I add some padding and then grid. As you can see here, by default, grid column is just 1 column for the mobile views. And then for the medium and more, I add 3 columns, right? And the gap is 6, right? Let's try to render another div in here as a children of the grid. So let's do left. And then this is going to be the right side. I'm going to give a background in here so you can see. I'm going to say whatever the color is here, I don't really care. And then also let's say background, maybe red 500. So as you can see, if I save, it's going to be look like this, right? And I'm going to make sure the right here is going to be all the way to the right side right here. It's like a 2 column basically. The right column is going to be like a 2 column and the left is just like a 1 column. So how do we do that? It's pretty simple. In here, I'm going to say for the medium and more, I'm going to make sure the grid, I forget that, I think span or something like that. Yeah, column span. For the left, I'm going to say column span is 1. For the right, I'm going to make sure for the medium and more, the column is going to be 2 column. It's going to be tagging 2 column. As you can see, if I go back, as you can see, the right is half 2 column right now. That's what I want. And also for the small, as you can see, it still go with 1 column because this is just effect on the medium and more. So let's try to first create the sidebar right here, the left. And then I'm going to go back to the components folder and create new file called, I'm going to call this node sidebar like this, .tsx, and rfc, change the name to node sidebar like this, and then just render that inside this left div right here. Say node sidebar. So basically inside this node sidebar, I'm going to render a card component from the Shadcn UI. So let's take a look for the card. Okay. And then let's try to install that. I'm going to copy this command, go into terminal, and then just paste that right here. And then how to use that is pretty simple. I just want to copy this import first and then go back. I'm going to put all the import on the top right here. And also I'm going to just copy all of this, go back, just paste that inside this return. Like this. Let's take a look what we have. And as you can see, we have all the card right here. And of course the background, I'm going to remove it because it's look terrible. Let's go back here. I just want to remove this background. Let's take a look. Great. Go back again into the node sidebar. So basically, I'm not going to use the card description. I'm going to remove that. And for the title, I'm going to use this my node text. And I'm not going to use the footer. I just want to use the card content right here. For now, I just putting like this empty node array. And then inside in here, I just want to check that, right? Let's say if the nodes.length is equal to 0, I'm going to render something in here. And else I'm going to render something in here. So if the node is 0, that means if the node is empty, I'm going to say, for now, I'm going to say node is empty. And here I'm going to say heading 1. Let's do list of the nodes. So in this node is empty, I'm going to render empty state basically. So let's create the empty state component. Let's create a file. Empty state.tsx. Okay, and then inside that I'm going to say rfc, change the component name into empty state, and then I'm going to render that inside this heading 1, right? If the node.length is 0, so I'm going to render that in here. Let's do empty state like that. Now we have empty state. So first I'm going to create the interface of this empty state props. So let's do interface empty state props, right? This is going to be have message like this, and it's going to be a string. Now let's put that in here. So I'm going to say message. This component, it should be have empty state props. And down here, I'm going to render a div with a class name display flags, item center, justify center, to basically make sure all the component inside this div is going to be on the center. Also, we have another div that have this class name right here, text center, and also the padding is egg. So inside that, I'm going to put this paragraph text that have this text mute foreground. It's basically change the color text into something like paragraph should have, right? So let's take a look what I mean. For now, the message is empty. Let's try to put some message in here. The message that I'm gonna send is, let's say, no notes yet, right? Let's go back, and as you can see, so let's render the button that we already installed, right? And the text is going to become from the props, and I'm gonna give a name button text. This is going to become from the props. So let's try to add that inside the interface. Button text props is going to be a string. And then also I'm going to put that in here as well. And we render that in here. Okay, so let's go back to node sidebar. We are going to add this button text. So I'm going to give a value like create your first node. Let's go back, and as you can see, we have this button. We also can add an icon, for example. So in the front of this text, I'm going to put a plus icon from the Lucid React that have height and width, right? And also the margin right. Let's save the look. As you can see, we have this plus icon. So if I click that, it's going to be create new node basically. So basically, I'm going to add on click in here. So let's do on click. If I click that button, you should be run the on button click. It's going to become from the props. And then I also want to add that inside the state right here that have a function that returning void for now. Okay, great. And I just want to make sure this is going to be an optional. I also want to create a header as well on the top right here that have button new node, right? So let's create that header component. Inside the component folders, let's create header.tsx. And then I'm going to do rfc, change the name to header. And then I just want to put that header into the page right here. So I'm going to render that in here. So let's do header like this. And then now we should have header on the top. Great. So let's styling this a little bit. So I'm going to use header tag in this div. So let's do header. And also I add class name, border bottom, padding 4, and then background is card. And then inside in here, I also want to wrapping that inside the container. So I'm going to say class name, container, mx auto to make the container in the center, and then flex to justify between to basically put the logo on the left and then the button on the right side. So I'm going to put this logo right here that have text to XL and font bold, browser note, as you can see on the top right here. And also the element on the right side is going to be button. So let's do button come from the Shadcn, right? And for the text, I'm going to say new node, just like this. So now we have a button right here. I also like to add this icon here, plus icon from the Lucid React. Let's take a look. We have this icon, great. And also I like to change the cursor into pointer. Let's go back to button here, and I'm going to say class name cursor pointer. Save that, and here we go. I also want to change the button size into small. Let's go to button right here, and the size, I'm going to set that to small. Let's take a look. Here we go. So when I click this new node button, I want to run a function basically. Let's go back to the header, and inside the button, I'm going to say on click. I'm going to put this on new node function. So let's create that on the interface first. Interface call header props like this. So we have on new node that have function that return a void. Okay, and then I'm going to put that in here. First, I'm going to grab the function on new node that have these props here. Header props. Great. So now as you can see, we have this error here because page.tsx, when I import the header, I'm not sent on new node function, as you can see right here. Okay, so let's send that. So I'm going to give a name, create new node function. So let's create that function on the top right here, const create new node, set equals to arrow function. For now, I just want to say empty function. So let's first create the state. I'm going to create state called nodes right here that have useState right here, of course. Because we're using useState in this home component, we need to change this home component into the client component. So we can do use client like that. And the nodes here is basically the type of this node. Okay. And I'm going to create that on the lib folder here. And then I'm going to create a file called type. And I'm going to export interface called a node that have ID string, title string, content string, and created at is number. So we can use that on this state right here. Here we go. So basically, when I click this new node button, right, this function will run. Okay. And inside this function, I'm going to create a variable called new node set equals to just the new node is basically should have type node. And this is going to be an object, and then inside that we have an ID. So this ID is going to be string, right? And I'm going to generate the ID use date dot now. I'm going to make sure this is going to be a string. So I'm going to use toString, and also the title I'm going to say new node by default, and also the content is going to be empty string, and the created at is going to be date.now, just like that. So we have this value. So if you want to see that value, I just want to console log the new node. Okay, so let's go back and open a console. Let's take a look. If I click new node, we have this value here. We have an content, created at, ID, and then the title. So what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to set the nodes into the state right here, right? Into the new node. Just make sure the new node is going to be on the front, because I'm going to make sure the new node is going to be on the first list. And then I'm going to put the other nodes come from the state here. Okay, so I'm going to just console log this node. Let's say console log nodes. Okay, and as you can see, by default is empty. Okay, if I click new nodes, as you can see, we have one node right here that have this ID and etc. If I click that again, of course, we have two nodes. And as you can see, the ID is different because this is auto-generated use date.new basically. So I'm going to render this node here into the node sidebar. So after I click the new nodes, right, the nodes that I already create is going to be shown on the list right here on the sidebar. So let's go back to the node sidebar. I'm going to send this node set equals to nodes, right? And let's go to the node sidebar component, and I'm going to just make sure I create the interface of the props in here. So let's do interface called a node sidebar props, and inside that we have nodes. Okay, so the node's going to be have type node come from the type, and it's going to be inside an array. Great. So now let's grab that node like so, and just make sure this component is going to be have node sidebar props. But instead of using it like this, okay, we are going to get that nodes from the props. So we get this list right here. Let's try. As you can see here, list of the node. So basically now node is half length, so this empty state is not longer available. So now we can access this list of the node. So in here I'm going to map through the node. So let's just render a div, and inside the div I'm going to say node.map, and then I'm going to grab the individual node like that, and inside in here I'm going to render a div. Okay, so just make sure the key is going to become from the ID, not ID. And also inside this div, I just want to render basically for now, just say heading 3 and then say title, node.title. So let's try to add new node right here. As you can see, we have new node. Okay, if I click that again, we have another node, and another node. Great. So let's go back in here, and I just want to try to just styling this a little bit. Class name. So basically I add this padding 3, rounded medium, and cursor to pointer. When I hover that card, I want to change the background to accent, and also I add this transition color. Let's go back, and as you can see, if I hover, it looks like this. And also inside in here, in heading 2, I'm going to remove that heading 3 basically. So I'm going to put all title, content, and also the date on the left, and also the button remove on the right side. That's why in here I'm going to use a div that have class name, display flex, and justify between item center. So let's make this div right here on the left, and also make this button on the right side. So I'm going to put, let's say remove for now. As you can see, now the remove is on the right and the left is on the left. So let's try to just styling this right here. So for the title, I'm going to use heading 3 that have font medium. And as you can see right here, I just show the 31st character. And if the title is more than 30 character, I just adding this 3 dot right here. So let's take a look. This is what we have. And also for the content, I want to use this p tag that have text small, text mute foreground, and then the node content, I'm going to get the 41st character. If the content have more than 40, just adding this 3 dot right here. The content is not going to be showing right here because by default, we don't have a content. As you can see on the page right here, when we add a new node, as you can see, the content is empty string. Of course, you can add, for example, lorem 5t, and then I just want to make this string like this, save that, and as you can see, I also want to refresh, create new node. As you can see right here, right, we have the 3 dot. And also, I'm going to render the date on the bottom of this content. So let's just copy all of that right here and then paste that. Okay, and for the content, I'm gonna get that from the created at. So it's going to be basically node dot created at like that. And as you can see, this is what we have. Just random number. All right, we're going to format this with another function. So I'm gonna go to lib right here, create a file called storage.ts. And inside in here, I'm going to export function called format date. This function is like a parameter called timestamp, and this is going to be a number, right? But this function, I like to return this function as a string, like this. I'm gonna say return new date, and I'm gonna put the timestamp right here, and then I'm gonna use to local date string, and I'm gonna use en-us. Also for here, I'm gonna say year. I'm gonna specify this is going to be numeric, and also for the month, I'm going to make sure this is short. For the day, let's also say numeric, just like that. So now we can use this function when we render the date on the page right here on the sidebar. Okay, so let's just wrapping this node created at inside the format date function. Let's import that, and now as you can see, I'm gonna go back, and then let's try to create new node. So as you can see, I'm going to make it bigger, and if I click new node, as you can see right here, we have March 4, 2025. I don't want to use this button right here. Basically, I'm going to use icon. So inside the button right here, I'm going to render maybe trash icon, trash 2. I'm going to specify the height into 4 and also the width into 4 as well. So let's save and let's take a look. If I create new node, as you can see, this is what we have. So I like to just render icon. There's no button with background black right here. I like to just icon trash. Let's go back in here, and I'm going to send some props in this button. So I'm going to send the variant into ghost, size into the icon, and then the class name egg with egg text mute foreground. When I hover that, text decorative, and also the cursor is going to be in pointer. Let's go back, and as you can see, this is what we have, right? When I hover that, it's basically the text decorative. It's mean the text is kind of like a red color, right? As you can see, that's super nice. So now let's working with the preview of the node. For example, I click this new node right here. If I click that, the node is going to be shown on the right side right here with the title, with the content, and etc. Right? If I click that right here, another node will be showing on the right side. So first we need to get the node what we are going to click, right? So here, before that, I just want to remove the background right here. And also inside this div, I'm going to run a function called render node content. I create this function because there's a lot of conditions. So it's better to create a function instead of just add condition inside this div. Okay, so here I'm going to create a function. So let's say const render node content set equals to an arrow function. And for now, I just want to say return null. Just like that. Of course, now it's just an empty. Great. So now we need to create basically a state to store the node that we click on. So I'm going to give a name of this state is active node, all right? And this active node have a type node, of course, and by default is just null. Okay, so where we need to run this function right here. So basically we need to run that on the node sidebar, right? When we click, for example, this one right here, when I click that, I want to store that node into the, let me go into the active node right here. So we can show that active node into the right side here. So let's first go back to node sidebar, and I'm going to add another props in here, props type. So I'm going to call this on select node that have node with this node type. It's going to be returning void. So now let's grab that on select node inside this function, right? Inside this component node sidebar. And we are going to run this function when we click the card. So basically, I'm going to running that on this div. So I'm going to add this on click on this div. And when I click that div, it's going to be run the on select node, and we send the node right here. Right, so let's go back, and as you can see on this function, of course, we get an error because we not send the on select node. So now let's sending that on select node set equals to select node. I'm going to create the select node function. So let's do that on the top here. I'm going to say const select node set equals to arrow function. Okay, when I click the select node, it's basically take a node as a parameter in here that have node type like that. And inside in here, I'm going to set the active node into that node here. Okay. Here we go. So now we get this active node value. Let's try to console log that just to make sure. And I'm going to click new node. Let's go to inspect and then console. As you can see, if I click the new node, we get the value on the console here. So now we can render the active node into the function right here, render node content, right? So I'm going to check first if we have the active node. Okay, if we have active node, I'm going to return, for now, I just want to say a div, for example, and then inside in here, I'm going to say active node dot maybe title. As you can see, if I save that, and we get the title right here. Okay. Because we have the same title, of course, we get the same result. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to create another component that will render the view of the node. So now let's go to the component folders, and in here, I'm going to create a file called, let's say node view. And inside in here, let's do RFC. And then for the component name, I'm going to say node view. Like that, and we are going to import that component inside in here. So let's do node view. So now let's working with the node view component. So first I'm going to create the interface of this component. So I'm going to interface called a node view props that have node, single node, and then for the type of this node is basically come from the lib/type folders like that. And I'm going to grab that node in here as a props. And of course, I'm going to specify this component is going to be have node view props interface, just like that. And now I'm going to render that down here. And I'm going to basically using card component. So I want to say card like this, and we have a card header like that. And also I'm going to render the title in here. So I'm going to say node dash title, and also we have the card body as well in here. So I'm going to say card, not card body, but card content, I believe, and just put the content here. So I'm going to say node dash content, save that, and let's take a look. We still get the node view because we don't yet import the node view in here. Oh, we're already doing that, but we not send the a node set equals to active node, just like that. So let's try to create a new node. All right, I'm going to click this one. As you can see, we have new node on the right side here. I think I'm going to just put this title into the card title component. So let's do card title just like this and put that right here. Still inside the card header, I'm going to put the date basically. So I'm going to use this p tag with text small, text mute foreground, and also I'm going to use the format date function and put the created add value inside here. So now let's save, and we should see the date of the node basically. Here we go. As you can see, we get the value. So now what I'm going to do is basically when I click the new node, right? The first time I click a new node, it's going to be open the edit form. Basically, I can change the title, I can change the content of the node and etc. So I can save that, right? So if I click for individual like this, it should be open the view node. But if I click the first time new node here, right? It's going to be open the edit node. Okay, so basically, first, I'm going to create the edit node component. So I'm going to give a name node editor. So let's create a new file in here. Let's do node-editor.tsx. And I'm going to say rfc, change the name to node editor. And then where we need to render this component. So basically we can render that inside the render node content right here, right? But we are going to add some condition in here. So the condition is if the active node have a value, right? And if the is editing is true, I'm going to render that node editor. So I'm going to say return node editor. And of course, now we don't have this is editing value, right? So let's create that value on the top. So I'm going to putting that on the state basically. And then of course, by default, I'm going to setting that into the false. And the first time I click the create new node on the top right here, I like to basically show the editing node. So I'm going to put it in here, all right, inside the create new node. After I add new node on the nodes state right here, I'm going to also do set editing into true. All right, so if I click new node, as you can see, now it's still loading down here. So if I click new node, as you can see, we get the node editor, right, on the right side. And also if I click the individual node right here, I also like to show the detail of the node, right, not the node editor. So I'm going to set the set editing right here back to false when I click the selected node. So basically I can do that in here, set editing back to false, right? So if I click that, as you can see, we get the detail of the node. But if I click new node, it's going to be open new node down here, and then we get the node editor. So the node editor is basically like a props called node that have active nodes. So we can show the node when we edit the node, okay? All right, so now let's go back to the node editor component. So I'm going to create interface called node editor props. And then as you can see, we just have node as a props right here that have type node. And then I'm going to grab that inside this node editor component. So let's grab the node And then the type of this component, of course, I'm going to use node editor props. So now I'm going to store the node title and content inside the state. So I'm going to do like this. As you can see, I use state right here. It's going to be stored the node title as a default value on the title state right here, and node content as a default value for the content state right here. Because we using useState, of course, this component, it should be useClient component. So I'm going to say useClient like that. And again, I'm going to use a card basically. So I just want to remove this div and then just return a card component like that. And inside in here, we have the card header. And also inside that, we have the input. So I'm going to put this input basically. Right, this input is going to be come from the Shadcn. So I'm going to install that npx Shadcn add input, and also the text area. So let's hit enter. As you can see, by default, it's going to be have value title from the top right here from the state. And then when the value change on the input, I just basically change the set title value right here into the whatever value I typing on the input field. Right, so let's import the input from the UI and we're done. Right, so now I'm going to do npm run dev. So let's try to click new node. As you can see, we have the value on the sidebar, but we don't get the form basically. So what I'm doing wrong, so let's go back to page right here. The condition is say if the active node have a value, right? And the first time I click this one, we don't have new active node. Okay, so that's why when we click create new node, we need to basically also set the active node into the new node, right? So I'm going to put the new node right here, and then let's refresh. Let's try that again. As you can see, we get that value, right? And as you can see, this is an input field, so I can change whatever I want in here. And as you can see on the node editor, basically what I'm gonna do is I just remove all the border, and when I focus, I remove also the ring basically. Okay, if I just not use that, as you can see, this is the ring. So that's why I use this class name right here. After we create the input field for the node title, now we need to create also the text area for the node content basically. So let's go back on the node editor. I'm going to put the content text area into the card content. So let's do card content like this, right? And I'm going to put the text area in here. So as you can see, I'm going to import the text area from the UI/text area. And for the default value, I'm going to get that from the content state, which is this one right here, right? And also for the placeholder, that's for the placeholder. And the class name is going to have minimal height to this calc right here, resize none, border none, and the ring also 0. So now if I click new node, as you can see, we have the title on the top right here, right? I can change that value. And also we get the content of the node. That's super nice. So now I'm going to add button save and also button cancel right here. So let's go to still inside the card component. I'm going to create the card footer. So as you can see, the card footer is basically have a display flags, justify and to basically put all the card content into the end of the card right here. And then the button is going to become from the UI/button. And then this function is going to become from the state. So I'm going to grab that in here on cancel and also handle save, and we click the save button, as you can see right here, right? And also the X is going to become from the Lucid React icon and also the save icon as well. So now as you can see, we have the cancel icon and also we have the save button also right here, right? Of course, now it's not works, right? Just yet. So let's try to make this button save works. So as you can see here, when I click the save button, which is this button right here, I run the handle save function. So the handle save is come from the props, but I like to just create the handle save on this component, on the node editor component. So let's do const handle save set equals to arrow function. And inside in here, I'm going to run function called on save. So this on save is going to be come from the props, right? So I'm going to get that from the props like this. And also in this on save, I'm going to send like title equals to title on the state right here, and also content equals to content, and also created at equal to created at. But I like to just destructuring all the value from the node, so I can do that in here. So I can say like 3 dot and then node like this. I also want to prevent that when user, for example, save without typing any title, I want to give a default title, right? And in here, I'm gonna say the title, I'm gonna say title.trim. This is basically will remove all the space, right? And then I'm going to say for the default value of the title, I'm going to say this one right here. Again, in here, we need to update the interface of the on cancel and also on save. So I'm going to put that in here. As you can see, on save take a node as a parameter, and also on cancel just return function void right here. Great. So now we can go back to page and just send this parameter right here. Let me see, on cancel and on save, right? So let's do on save equals to save node and on cancel equals to cancel edit. So let's first create the cancel edit because that's really simple. So I'm going to do that in here. Const cancel edit set equals to our function. When I cancel the edit, as you can see right here, if I cancel, yeah, of course I get an error because I don't have this function. Let me create that a little quick. All right, so as you can see right here, if I, for example, click the cancel, what happened is the is editing, it should be false, right? The is editing right here, it should be false. So what I can do is basically really simple. I can put the set is editing to false inside the cancel edit like this. So when I click cancel, it's going to be close the is editing form, right? I can click that again, close like that. So remember on the on save, on the node editor function, we send this value, right? We're sending title, content, and also created at on this destructuring node, right? It's come from here basically, right? Also, of course, we can edit the node right here. We can grab that, right? Because this is the updated node. I'm going to say updated node like this. This is going to be have type node. And then inside in here, I'm going to basically get the ID that I'm going to edit inside the nodes state, right? So I can say like set nodes into, I'm going to grab all the nodes come from the state, and then I'm going to map through all of that. I'm going to grab the individual node, and then in here, I'm going to check if the node.id is equal to updated node.id. If this condition true, I'm going to just return the new node, which is the updated node, else just return the node. So now let's try to just console log the node so we can see the value on the console, right? Let's just open the console, and then I just want to reload everything. So just make sure we get the fresh state happen here, right? So let's click new node. As you can see, we have one node on the terminal, of course, and the title is new node. If I change that to, for example, my first node, okay, and it's going to be lorem ipsum or something like that. I'm gonna click save. Of course, now I want to close this form, right? This edit form right here. How we can close that? Really simple. We can do that with something that we're doing on the cancel edit, of course. So let's do that in here as well, just like that. So now I'm gonna click save. As you can see, it's closed. But as you can see here, it still shows the new node because remember that on the view, right, node view now is open, right? We know this is node view, and node view using this active node basically. So active node is not updated right now. Of course, we want to update that. So I'm going to copy this set active node into this save node right here. And of course, this is going to be the new updated node, right? So let's do that. And then I'm going to refresh so we get the clear everything, create new node 1, for example. This is just example, right? If I click save, as you can see, the left right here is updated and also the view of the node is updated. Let's try to create a new one. As you can see here, I'm gonna say node 2, say this is node 2, for example. Okay, I'm gonna click save, and as you can see, we have node 2 as well right here. If I click new node 1, as you can see, it's updated right here, the view. That's super nice. Basically, I like to have edit button when I view the node basically. For example, I click this one right here. I have edit node on the bottom of this card. So what I'm going to do is let's go back. I'm going to close everything, right? And now let's open the view of the node. So we have that component on this node view. Okay, this is what we have on this right side right here. So let's go on the content card, and inside in here, I'm going to add the button. Or I think the better way is just putting that button on the card footer. So I just want to put that on the card footer like this, right? That have this button with this edit node as a text. And then when we click this button, it will run the onEdit function. The onEdit function is going to become from the props, right? So let's grab that from here. And also we need to add that interface as well in here. And now we can send this onEdit from the page, right? Page.tsx right here. As you can see, of course, we get an error right here because we not send this onEdit function. So in here, what we need to do is just basically set the isEditing to true, right? We can say set equals to, just put arrow function in here. Let's say set isEditing into true. Just like that. Now let's save, take a look. As you can see, we have edit node. If I click that, it just opened the edit form, right? Let's open the new node 1 here. If I click edit node, as you can see, it's just on the edit node right now. Update, click save. Now it's updated. As you can see here, if we don't have any node, as you can see, this is just empty, right? And the right side is just an empty. So I like to have kind of like empty state on here, right? When we don't have any node. So let's go back to the condition on the page right here when we render the rendered node content function, which is all the function right here. So on the top here, I'm going to add another condition. I'm going to say if, right? We don't have any active node and the node length is 0. That means there's no node and there's no active node. I'm going to return the empty state basically. So here I'm going to say empty state. Okay, we have that component, right? And in here we need to send the message, and the message that I'm going to send is let's do create your first node to get started. Also, as you can see, there's another require props called button text. So I'm going to send that as well. Button text, say new node like this, save. And as you can see now, we get this button. I like to make this sidebar here to 100 view height, right? Which is all the way right here. So let's go back to the node sidebar, and on the card right here, I'm going to add class name height. I'm going to set that to full, save, and I hope that works. It's not works. So let's do background red just to make sure what happened in here. Yeah, it's still here. It's just because I believe on main right here. All right, I'm going to say background blue just to see this container. Okay, that's the problem. So basically in here, I can add flex1 like this, right? Let's save that. And as you can see, it's get the full height basically. So let's go back. I'm going to remove the background red. And here we go. This is what I love. And also as you can see, this text will be on the center. As you can see, if I click new node or create your first node, is not works. Okay, it's just because on the empty state right here, when I click this button, on button click run, but again, this is optional and we don't send anything on that empty state. Basically, as you can see right here, there's no function call on button click, so that's why it's not works, right? On node sidebar also, we don't send any let me see where I do that right here, right? We don't send any function to run this on button click. So let's go back to the page.tsx right here. So basically in here, I'm going to run create new node when we click the button, right? So that's why in here I send the on button click props to run the create new node that we already have right here. Okay, of course now it will works. When I click, right, it just works. Let's refresh that again. And of course now this button is not works. Let's go back to the node sidebar. And as you can see in here, we need to also send that function, which is create new node, but we don't have that right here, right? So that's why we need to get that function from the props. So I'm going to put that in here. And also I'm going to specify the interface of this function. Let's do void like that. And now as you can see, our page is get an error because this function is required. Let's scroll it down, and as you can see, we are going to send the create new node set equals to create new node. And now it should be works. If I click, here we go, right? That's nice. So the thing that we forget is basically the delete functionality. As you can see right here, if I do new node 1, let's say lorem ipsum, as you can see, this button is not work for now. Okay, so let's go back, and that button it should be on the sidebar. So let's go to node sidebar, this button right here. Right, as you can see, there's no on click event. So let's do on click. When we click that button, I want to run function call. Let's do arrow function like this because we need to send parameter. Of course, we are going to use arrow function. So in here I'm going to say on delete node, just like this, and I'm going to send the node.id to specific node that we are going to delete. Okay, so now let's grab that function from the props right here. And of course, also we need to specify the interface. And remember, the on delete node have a ID. Of course, in here I can say ID. I can do this is going to be a string, and I'm going to just return void like this. And of course, now my page is get an error because we don't send the on delete. I'm going to create a function called delete node basically. So let's scroll up and let's create that function. So in here I'm going to say const on delete node set equals to arrow function. And of course in here it take a ID, right? ID is going to be a string, and I can just console log the ID so we can see the ID that we are going to delete. So here I'm going to save, and as you can see, if I click this, as you can see here, we get an ID. What we are going to do is just filter this node and we're done, right? So let's go here, remove that console. I'm going to say set nodes, right? And then I'm going to grab all the nodes from the state. I'm going to say dot filter like this. And I just want to filter the node ID that is not equal to ID that we get from the parameter. And we just done, right? So let's try. I'm going to create another node, let's say node 2, save. And now, for example, I'm going to delete this new node, click that, and it's just gone. Okay, it works. But as you can see, we still see the active node right here, right on the right side. Even the left side right here on the sidebar, there is no new node, right? So let's go back, and there's something that we need to do in here. First, I'm gonna check, right? If we have active node, and the active node.id is equal to ID that I delete. Okay, so I'm going to remove that. So I'm going to say set active node into null, just like this. Let's try. I'm going to refresh, so we get the fresh state. I'm going to create new node, let's say 1, right? Just to make it simple. 1, save, create that again, 2, save, and then create that again, 3, save. Okay, as you can see, now the active node is, for example, 1. I'm going to delete, for example, 3. 3 is gone, but this 3, it will becoming the active one. What happened here? So for example, I'm gonna click 1 and I'm gonna delete 2. 2 is will be active. So there's something wrong I'm doing here. So after I check my code, so finally I get the problem. So the problem is on this button delete right here. As you can see, when I click this function, right, this button right here, this function is run. And the problem is also this div right here also run, the parent div also run. So basically this is will run on select node. As you can see, on select node is basically running the select node, and select node will run the set active node. So that's why when I click delete, this also run. Okay, so to fix that, we can say like using event right here, and we can do event.stop propagation. And when we're using this one, now this function on the parent is not going to run. Let's try to run that. And then here I'm going to create a new node. Let's do 1, save, create that again, 2, save, create that again, 3, save. Okay, so now active node is 3. Okay, so if I delete, for example, 1, as you can see, it's still 3 right here. And for example, I'm going to delete 3, and now it's gone. Okay, when it's gone right here, I like to show the which is the default empty state. So I like to have, let me go back to the delete right here, right on the delete of the node, delete node. I'm going to make sure the set is editing back to false. So now as you can see, if the one here is active, right? When I delete that, of course, now it shows the empty state. So I'm just wondering if I have a lot of node right here, what happens? So let's try. Okay, as you can see, what happened is the sidebar is look like this. It's not good, right? I'm going to use component called scroll area on the Shadcn basically. So let's go to scroll area like this. So I'm going to use this component in order to scroll this sidebar basically. So let's try to install that. I'm going to copy this command and then go back to terminal, and then I'm going to just run that. So now let's go to the node sidebar, and I'm going to wrap this div right here with that component, which is scroll area component. So let's do scroll area component right here, right? It's come from the UI/scroll area. And of course, I'm going to wrap all of that. So let me see, the closing tag is right here. So let's just put all of that inside the scroll area like this. Let's take a look what happened now. And as you can see, we still cannot see the scroll because we not specify the height of this scroll area. So I can do like a class name, for example, height2. If I go back, and as you can see, we can scroll that in here. But I like to, the scrollable is until in here, right? Until the height is 100%. But I like to use this class name right here, which is 100 view height decrement by 250 pixels. So I get the fixed better views. So let's try to create a new node, and as you can see, now I can scroll that in here. That's super nice. And also I like to maybe create the scrollable also on right here, because for example, I have a lot of tags, for example, right here, right? I just go to lorem ipsum and just copy all of that content here. Okay, and then go back, paste that. And then as you can see now, if I save, it just show like this. I don't want that. I like to have also ability to scroll. Let's go to the, this is going to be view, right? Let's go to node view, and also I'm going to add that scroll view on this content, card content. So I just want to wrap this node content with the scroll area component like this. Just make sure import that. And also I get this value right here, 100 view height decrement by 350 pixel. Let's save that. And now as you can see, I can scroll it. It's more better, right? And also as you can see, when I edit that, for example, this long node right here, if I click edit, as you can see, it's just showing like this. I don't like that. So let's go to the node editor, and as you can see here, I just add minimal hake. So I want to remove the minimal. So I just have hake into this value right here. The value is same like I putting on the, I believe, node view right here, right? Let's try, and this is what I have. That's I love so much. I can save that, and then as you can see, cool. Okay, and also I can click other things. It just works. But the last thing is basically when I click, for example, this new node, I like to, this right here is have kind of like a background color different, right? So we know that this is going to be the active node. All right, so let's go back on the page, and we have this right here, right? Active node. This is the value that will show on the right side basically. So I'm gonna send that ID into the node sidebar. So I'm gonna say active node ID set equals to active node, all right, dot ID. Okay, so we can access that ID. And now I can grab the ID into the node sidebar. Let's grab that in here. And of course, this is going to be a string like this. So we can grab that on the props. And now we can basically check that name. If there's equal to node.id, I'm going to change the color right here. So as you can see, I just want to paste this class name right here. As you can see, if the active node ID is equal to node ID, I'm going to set the background to accent. Let's try to see. As you can see now, the background is changed, right? Whenever the node active, the background will change. So because this app called browser node, it's better to just store the value on the local storage of the browser, right? Because now when I refresh, it's just gone. So I like to store all the node value on the local storage. So let's go to application and then this local storage right here. So I'm gonna store all the data on all the node on the local storage. So let's go back to first, why I get an error right here. We get this error because sometimes active node is null. Okay, so let's go back to node sidebar, and I just want to make this active node ID optional, and now the error should be gone. Great, so let's just close everything here, and now let's open the lib and then storage. I'm going to create a function in here. I'm going to create the variable storage key. So I'm going to say storage key is going to be nodes, all right? And also in here, I'm going to create a function called, let's say export. I'm going to do function, the function name, I'm going to say save nodes, right? It's taken nodes, basically. The nodes is going to be have type node in array like this. And I just want to return a void like this. So the first thing is I have this condition right here. If the window is undefined, that means if we not on the browser, just return undefined right here. But else I'm going to say local storage, right? Dot set item. I'm going to set the item called storage key like this, right? And what I'm going to send in here is basically the nodes. So I'm going to say JSON dot stringify and then send the node just like this. So now we can use this function to page.tsx. So let's scroll up, and in here I'm going to say use effect, right? I'm going to use effect in here, and this use effect will run every time the node changing. So I'm going to say node as a dependency, and then inside in here I'm going to run the save nodes come from the storage and just send the nodes come from the state. Now, as you can see, we have nodes is empty, right? If I click new node, as you can see here, we have the ID and etc. So let's try to update this one right here. This is new. What's up? So let's save. As you can see right here, I believe it should be updated. Right here, the title is this is new. You cannot see that. This is new, and the content is what's up, bro? What's up? Right here. Okay, anyway, it works, right? So now if I refresh, the value is still there, I believe. It's not, of course, because we don't handle any load nodes, right? So let's try to do that as well in here. So I'm going to paste this really simple function called load nodes. So this function will returning node as an array. As you can see, And the first thing is, as you can see in here, right on the top first, if we not on the browser, just return empty array. And down here, basically we get item from the local storage, and the name of the item is going to be nodes, right? In this case, we get an empty array. And then here, if we have a value, and we need to return JSON parse save node. Okay, basically we parse this JSON stringify on the value, and else just console log error and just return empty array. So how to use this? Pretty simple. Let's go back to page. And also we need to running that on the use effect. And as you can see right here, it's run on the initial render. So that's why I put empty array in here as a dependency. And the first render is going to be run this set node, which is this use state right here will run, and will run a load nodes, right? If this function have a value, of course, now node state have a value. Let's go back. I'm going to create new node. Let's do random. This is new. Save that. As you can see now, our local storage is updated, right? Right here, and then let me see, right here. And now as you can see, if I refresh, it's still there, right? If I refresh, it's still there. Okay, I think we're done, guys, with this really simple project, but I believe you will learn something new from this simple video. And yeah, see you on the next one.